good day to one and all. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for coming back to another episode of Sometimes the Old Man is Right. As usual, I am your host, Lamont Ferguson, playing the role of the old man. I am on my way back to Juneau. So last time I talked to you, I was in Juneau, and then there was another trip to Juneau, and now here's another trip to Juneau. This is episode 31, or if you're a super fan, really keeping track, it's season 2, episode 7. My, oh my, how far we have come. They said it couldn't be done. They said that there's no way you could make it to episode 31. That's what they said. They said it. That's what they said, but I showed them. Who said it? I don't know. The naysayers, the ones that are always saying nay. You know what's weird about that? You notice there's no I sayers. I find that odd. Because those that go against, say nay, and those in favor say aye, yet there's no such saying as the I sayers. Only the naysayers. No I sayers. You have returned for more of whatever this nonsense is, and I greatly appreciate you. The numbers have started going up for the podcast, mainly because I've been plugging it at the end of my shows each week on the cruise, which you would have thought should have been a no-brainer, but I'm very weak on the business aspect of this thing that we call show business. That's my weak suit, my weak point. Is it weak suit? Strong suit. Man, I am caught up in the antonyms here. Your weak suit. Because if you have a strong suit, you should be able to have a weak suit. Man, I don't even know. It's super early in the morning. Ain't nobody got time for all this thinking. But it's the weakest thing is the business aspect of it. I try to get better at it, but nah, I'm the creative person. That's why I've got the people, got agents. They handle the business, and I do the creative. And although I really need a management team, I've got agents, but I need a management team. Although I'm not sure if there's a big demand in Hollywood management for a 57-year-old comedian, but I'm putting it out there. I need a management team. I need that type of team behind me so I can thank someone else if I win an award for something. Otherwise, it'll be the Snoop Dogg thing where I just am thanking myself. So, if you're interested, management people out there, in adding a 57-year-old comedian to your roster, you let me know. Shoot me an email. Find me somehow. And if it helps any better, I can play 45. Easily, I can play 45. That's that is something. I believe that's something. Anyway, what's up, partners? How you been? What's the good word? I hope that all of you are well. I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. I have now entered my 6th week of 10 at sea. I'm currently in the week where there are 5 more weeks to go, including this week. So in essence, this is the hump week for me. Hump week? Mike. What week is it? It's hump week. Hump week. It's from that old Geico commercial with the camel walking around. I say for my money, pound for pound, Geico Insurance has the best commercials running consistently. They're funny, they're clever, and I don't even think it's close. I don't know any other service or product that has the long running of consistent funny commercials that Geico has. They must got a lot of Darren Stevens working over there. Anyone understand that reference? It's a Bewitched reference is what it is. Darren Stevens was Samantha Stevens' husband on Bewitched. You know, Samantha played by Elizabeth Montgomery. Darren Stevens played by two people, the two Dicks, Dick York, Dick Sargent. He worked at an ad agency, which I'm going to tell you right now, the idea of working at an ad agency was very appealing to me in my late teens and early 20s. It was something that you got to be creative. It seemed like that was right up my alley. And I don't know, it wasn't that long of a time, but maybe let's say maybe an 18-month period where I thought, well, that'll be me. I'm going to be Darren Stevens. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be there working in an ad agency. The whole idea, you had poster boards and meeting rooms and meetings, and I had an office. And there was a time, like I said, I thought I was going to be Darren Stevens. I was going to be an ad exec on the rise. I'd have a difficult but fair boss. What was it? Larry Tate. Larry Tate was his boss. That was going to be my life. My wife would be a witch, right? I thought it was a possibility that was going to be my life. Now, I was doing stand-up at the time, but back then there was no blueprint, and there was not really a lot of help as to what the career path with stand-up could be. Like we knew the stars, like the stand-up comedy stars. You knew Cosby, you knew Carlin, you knew Richard Pryor, you knew Eddie Murphy was brand new on the scene, but there was no map or diagram as to, okay, well, this is what you do. You get good here, then you go out in the clubs, and then, there was no show business guidance counselor, let's say that, to kind of say, hey, let's map this thing out for you. No, and no one was willing to pass down their knowledge either, because they were all part of the big rat race. And the fact that I was a kid at the time, remember, I started at 17. I could barely get into the club. I could get into the club long enough to go on stage, and then I had to immediately leave the club. So I didn't even get to see how the craft was performed when I was 17. And then the improv came around, and then you only had to be 18 because they serve food to get into the improv. Then I could hang out at the improv and watch the craft and see what was going on. But I'm very kept to myself. I'm very shy when it comes to dealing with people that's outside of performing. So I'm not a person that's going to sit there and, hey, I'm going to make friends with you. That wasn't me. So nobody would kind of share information, and I wasn't out seeking the information. I'd do my set, record my set, go back home, listen to the set, and then make the adjustments accordingly for the next time I get ready to go up. But I didn't know what you could do with it. I didn't know anything about being a writer. That's another facet of show business that I could have pursued, or being some type of creator. I mean, now it's much easier. It's much, because there are things that are kind of mapped out. You can be a content creator. There's so many different avenues to be able to be creative today that are right there in people's faces, as opposed to there where you're like, hey, I guess I get into show business and then try to get discovered, which is a weird thing. But I really thought, man, I was going to be Darren Stevens. And also, it satisfied all the participants in one's life. Because, you get into show business or you say, hey, I want to be in show business. That's not a career path that everyone is gung-ho and right behind. I remember when I sat my parents down and said, I think I want to try stand-up comedy. And the look on their faces, I'll never forget the look on their faces. I might as well have said, hey, I'm going to go get some things out of the garage and try to go to the moon. So if that's good with you guys, I'm going to build a rocket ship out of whatever's in the garage, and I'm going to go to other planets, see if there's life on those planets. I might as well have said that because nobody knew then. I mean, I'm not even sure how supportive people are now. If someone says, hey, I want to go into show business, maybe they're a little more supportive, a little because there's more of an understanding as to how things work. They will still give you the big, the eyebrow type of raise where it's like, okay, it's that type of deal. I remember back then, everything was always about the negative. Yeah, that's one thing I will kind of give people some props for, is that they have become a little bit more encouraging. So I will give credit to parents today that have updated their terms of service. That's one of the good things about parenting. Well, I'll say some parenting of today is that, it's like an app. Like if you view parenting as an app, and then every so often they say, hey, by the way, we've updated our app here, our parenting app. Do you agree to these terms of service? And then you go ahead and click yes on that thing. You're like, hey, we decided that, we're no longer going to beat our kids. Do you agree to that? And people are like, yes. And we'll be a little encouraging and understanding. Maybe listen to what they have to say. Do you agree to that? And they go, yes. But there are people that just go, no. Like, no, decline. No, what is this? I don't need any more updates. I'm good. Decline. There are those people out there, but kudos to the people that click yes to the updates of terms of service in parenting. But yeah, I thought that was it. Poster boards, meetings. Here's an idea. Boom. Oh, you nailed it, Ferguson. How about let's go to lunch? That's what I thought I was going to be, because that would have made everyone happy. Look, here's a regular job, but I also get to be creative. But alas, it was comedy. Comedy, that's what I was doing. Stand-up. The thing about that Bewitched show is this generation of remakes, I'm surprised they haven't remade the show. I take it back. I'm not really that surprised, because of the fact that back then you just accepted things at face value. There were a lot of weird shows that just never got explained. The shows today have to be based in some sort of tangible reality. Some sort of tangible reality. Like you can do a show about the supernatural because of the fact that there's a lot that's not explained. And so people will try to explain it in the show, and then some of it you just have to accept. Now, the superheroes, those were already established, all the, superhero Marvel and DC stuff, those were already established as being, hey, these people are superheroes, you know how they got to be superheroes, and you just accept it. But a show like Bewitched, like a dude married a witch, there's too many questions to be asked for that to be accepted. They go, how did they meet? In what world does this regular dorky looking dude hook up with a witch? Where is this? What dating app was that where you meet witches? And the witch wants to just try and be mortal? It's got a very fairy tale aspect to it because, the whole, I need to meet a prince and blah, 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 like the Little Mermaid just wants to be human. It's kind of like that. But she just wants to be a normal mortal. But I'm going to meet a human and I'm going to pick this dorky dude. But I'm going to try and not use my powers. And every time she does use her powers, they always backfire. It's funny because everyone else that she's related to that are also witches, they use their powers all the time. And there seems to be no downside for them using their powers. She tries to not use her powers, and then when she does use them, always a bad turn. Every single time. Endora, the mother-in-law, she's showing up. She's using her powers. She don't care. Serena, her twin cousin. It was weird, right? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different show where the cousins, identical cousins. But Serena, who was played also by Elizabeth Montgomery. So I guess they weren't twins because Serena had dark hair. She used her powers fine. Paul Lynde, uncle, I can't think of what his character's name was, but the Paul Lynde character using his powers all the time, no problem. Not a single problem. She uses her powers, all craziness ensues every single time. But I don't think they can make that show today. Like I said, too many questions. You'd have to have some diversity, and that wouldn't work. Like, I don't even remember if there was any black people that worked in Darren Stevens' office. His boss was white. I think even when friends came over, they were white. I don't recall. There may have been one black employee, but I don't recall specifically. And besides, that wouldn't even work either. Because how you gonna tell your friend, or your friend finds out that you're married to a witch with black people back then? Heck, even black people now. I'm married to a witch. Look, let me explain it to you. You ever seen black people react to a magic trick done by David Blaine? Yeah, that would be the same reaction to I'm married to a witch, or if you found out your wife blinked and all of a sudden something showed up. Although that would be a funny show. If they made all those magical shows, but they just recast them with black people, that'd be the funniest thing ever. Like if you had I Dream of Jeannie, and you had the black neighbor that just kept, every time something happened, they just run away. You know, like the David Blaine reaction. That'd be hilarious. That'd be the most hilarious show. I would tune in and watch those shows. That'd be too funny. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on that ridiculous tangent. Again, like I said, I'm well. I'm in the hump week. Well, that's how we got into it. We started with the hump week. It went from commercials and boom, ended up having black people being recast for I Dream of Jeannie. Good Lord. What goes on in my head? I don't know what happened to me as a child. There may have been some sort of head trauma. I don't know. But I'm here on the ship heading into Juneau. I will be meeting up with a friend of mine, Andrew Gross, comedian. Canadian. You know how I love the Canadians. Hanging out with him as when we get into Juneau, having some lunch. We will have a comic gripe session about the things that are annoying us. I should probably run tape on that because I'm sure there'd be some funny things that took place. But he is on the Princess ship, and he's about had enough of them. And I'm here, and I'm all right. You know, the family was out last week, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it went by way too quickly. And I believe now my wife, well, I don't even believe, I know my wife is now addicted to cruising. It was her first cruise, and now she has gone back and is looking up different cruises. to go on and trying to get her girlfriends to go on cruises because she enjoyed it. So it's much like converting people into pickleball. I've now converted a person into a cruise person, a cruiser. Is that what they're cruisers? Cruise community? I don't know. Whatever it is. It was a good time. And Olivia had a nice time as well. So like I said, it went by way too quickly. But they are back home by the time you guys hear this. They'll be back at home. And other than that, I've gone back to my routine of sitting in my cabin, waiting for pickleball, and then returning to my cabin and just watching my shows that I've downloaded on my phone. I'll get to that in a second, because there was something I did see that I wanted to comment about. But let me wrap up the idea of what's going on the ship. Last time I told you they were badass kids. Last week I didn't notice any badass kids. I didn't see any badass kids. Granted, I was with the family at the time, so I didn't really do a lot to be out and about and witnessing badass kids. But I was out enough to where if they were there, I would have seen them. But they weren't. I didn't see any. This week, I just kind of made a pop-in appearance here and there on stuff. BB King, see what's going on, see what type of crowd I'm dealing with. And I hadn't noticed badass kids until I went to the first production show. And lo and behold, badass kids. They were there, talking extremely loud throughout the performance, where it's disruptive. I told you about this last week. I like to be lost in watching a performance. I don't want outside noise, and no one else wants it either. That's why they make an announcement at a lot of live shows where they say, keep your chatter down to a minimum as not to disrupt the people around you that are willing and wanting to enjoy the show. These kids are just everything. I don't know what has to happen, because I saw, come to think of it, I saw older people doing this too on the last day of last week, where people have to have this running commentary that goes, make a note and talk about it after the show. Why is it so pressing? Whatever you need to say needs to be said during the show at a high decibel. You know what? Now I'm a little fired up. There are certain old people apparently don't know how to whisper, and I get it. The hearing loss takes place, and then they don't know that they're that. But the truth is, when you're whispering. You do. Because if you've whispered at some point in your life, you know what that feels like when it comes out of your hole in your head, your big old mouth hole, your pie hole. You know what it takes to whisper. So don't give me they're hard of hearing. No, they're not. Has nothing to do with them being hard of hearing. It has to do with the idea that they don't want to whisper. You not being able to hear yourself whisper has nothing to do with the person next to you not being able to hear you. You know what you're saying. So I found that there are a large percentage of old people that just refuse to whisper is what it is. And these kids also aren't whispering. And I will also say that a lot of this has to do with manners and people not understanding how things work. If you go to see a live band, let's say they're not even, it doesn't even matter. I would say it doesn't matter. It matters what they're playing, but actually it doesn't. A live band, for some reason, we've gotten to the idea that a live band playing is just ambient noise that we will talk over. You watch people at a bar. They're not paying attention to the band. The band is just background music for them to raise the level of their conversation to talk over the music or talk loud enough to where the people around them can hear them. There's no appreciation for the artistry. Hey, that person plays an instrument. Let's hear how well they play the instrument. It's just noise in the background. And people carry that into every performance now. Every single performance now is background noise, including comedy. It happens a lot in comedy where people will start talking during the show and you're like, what is going on? Why are you talking? Why is there a commentary soundtrack going on the show? Sit down, pay attention, watch the show. You want to have a conversation? Go somewhere else. If while a performance is being done, you want to have a conversation, go to a different place. Not have the conversation there. There's no reason for the commentary to be running amongst the audience members. It's this weird mentality that we've gotten into where we treat everything as if it's background noise. There's nothing you're saying that is pressing and important. And if it is, like I said, write a note, something for you to remember afterwards. And then you guys can sit together with your dumb reviews. But oh, man. And you know what? Now that I'm at it, I'm going to say something that, no, I take it back. I'm not going to say it because I didn't want to go through the whole explanation of saying it. Learn how to whisper. There, I said it. Learn how to whisper, for crying out loud. So there were some badass kids, and their parents are sitting in a different section. That's the weird thing about it. They're sitting in a different section where they continually get up, walk out of the rows while the show is going on, having to walk past people, having people be disrupted from them trying to enjoy the show so they can go back to where their parents are and then come back to these seats. Not once did those parents say, hey, you know what? Sit in that seat, stay in that seat, or you're going to have to come back here and stay with me, and then you can't get up anymore because you're disrupting other people. Matter of fact, I don't even think they thought that. I don't even think they knew. This another idea where people take their kids to another place and then it becomes everyone else's responsibility to take care and watch your kids. Watch your damn kids or don't bring them. That is, get the old man sound working. Get it ready. I don't remember going anywhere as a kid. I don't remember going anywhere as a kid. And even if we did go somewhere, I rarely saw kids. There was a generation that I grew up with, or grew up in, where when you had a kid, you knew, all right, well, our going out days are over. Now our job is to sit at home, raise these kids. One, we didn't have a lot of money to be able to go out anywhere. So now you're going to go out. You added 1, 2, or 3 more onto the tab because you got these kids. You just stayed at home. You figured out what to do at home. Now, my goodness, we got to go everywhere. We got to bring our kids, and you're not parenting. You're not. You've let your kids run loose, run amok. Run amok. Oh, amok. I see why I made that problem. I was saying run amok amongst, and I combined the two of them. Run amok. You're running amok. Run amok amongst the rest of us. And we've got to now be concerned with your decisions, your shitty parent decisions. We aren't there for your kids. This used to happen a lot when I would go to the movie theater, and then parents would bring their toddlers to the movie theater, and the toddlers are running around up and down the aisles, and the parents are sitting there completely oblivious. Hey, we're out. No, keep your ass at home. You had a kid. The rest of us didn't have your kid. These are parts of the sacrifices made to have kids. Guess what? You don't get to go out as much as you used to. If you wanted to go out as much as you used to, don't have a kid. It's pretty simple. This idea that now, oh no, we still get to enjoy all that. No, you don't. You don't. Because now you're imposing on the rest of us. Rent out the movie theater for just you and your badass kids and your shitty, ignoring parenting styles. Then we won't be able to go to that theater. But we paid money. And our money wasn't to be bothered by your kids. Yeah, it really gets me fired up. This is back-to-back episodes about me ranting and raving about shitty parents. And it makes me kind of happy because this is information that needs to be out there. And some of you may be listening like, who are you to tell us how to parent? Well, I'm better than you. That's what I am. I know something more than you. If that's what you're saying, I will tell you right now, I know more than you. Because I know for a fact I am in the mass majority of people who have kids. And if you're part of those people that are like, the kids are just little adults, shut up. You're an idiot. You shouldn't have had kids. For crying out loud, jackasses. This is what is going on now. Now I got to avoid more badass kids. Again, a shout out to the good parents of kids. Well-behaved kids. Parents that know that, hey, I got to teach my kid manners and decorum and how to act in public, not wild animals that I've let loose on the general public. Because I can't be bothered. Because I spent all my time giving my kids an electronic thing to tell them this is my parenting skills is, hey, pay attention to your iPad. Now don't bother me. A shout out to all the Elliots and the Henrys parents that are out there. Which also brings me to a point where, because the numbers on the podcast have gone up, it has become the realization that people are actually listening to the podcast. And I don't really know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess that is obviously the goal, is to get more people to listen to the podcast. But the numbers have, they've increased at an exponential type of way. So at first I thought, well, maybe I should watch what I'm saying if people are listening, because I could be talking about some of those people. You know, like some of those people a couple of weeks ago with the badass kids. You could have figured out who it was because they said they were from Nebraska. And so if somebody was on the ship that was from Nebraska, listen, they go, oh my goodness, and we got kids. Hey, he's talking about us. And they might get a little upset. And then I realize I still don't care. I don't. Listen, don't listen. If I talk about you, there's probably a reason I talked about you. Correct it. Look at this as an intervention, for crying out loud. Because the people that I have talked about in a positive way, they've kind of reached out. You know, the parents of Elliot. Actually, even Henry's parents, they reached out. Or some of Henry's family members reached out because I gave them shout outs. But I know with some of those positives, there's going to be some negatives. There's going to be people that, hey, you know what? I don't know how to whisper. Or how dare you tell me that I should whisper? Yeah, how dare I? How dare you not whisper? So now I realize that nothing's going to change. I may be even bolder. Because I would say I'm even bolder because, like people on social media, you're behind. But actually, I'm a quasi-public figure. So it's easy to find me. And you want to confront me, go ahead. We can have a discussion. I won't change my mind. I'll still think you're a shitty parent. But you can bring me your defense, lay it on the table, state your case, and I'll make my decision. I'll wear a robe. I'll go into chambers. So that is what's happening. I'm looking forward to pickleball. The first day, you can never play pickleball, even though they schedule us for pickleball, because the winds are crazy. And it looks like it's going to be a good weather week. And I went up yesterday to get ready for some pickleball, which, by the way, yesterday was National Pickleball Day. I think we needed more fanfare for that. At least somebody should have sent me a memo and not have me find out in the middle of the day. But August 8th was National Pickleball Day. That was nice. I would have been nicer had I been able to play pickleball. But today looks like it's going to be a good day. And it looks like it's going to be another good week of pickleball. This may be a little bit more intense this week. I went up just to see if anyone would try to play in gale force winds. Thank goodness no one did. And also to see if there would be people there. There were a handful of people there. A few of them had their own paddles. And a few of them even asked, what's your rating? Which that has not happened any time on the ship. So this is a serious pickleball community. And I may be out of my league on here. And I'm a okay player. I don't know what my rating is. I have no idea. It's very hard to figure out because it goes 1 to 6. 1 is beginner. 6 is a pro. I know I'm not that. But people are like, yeah, I'm about a 3.0 or I play with 3.5. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I have no idea. I play with people even at home in when I play at that place over in Lakewood. Some of those people are really good. I play well enough to where I don't see them rolling their eyes or having to to exhale a lot of air that I'm going to play. So I'm an adequate player for recreational pickleball. But I'm looking forward to that. I'll go up later on this morning and get some pickleball in. Weather's going to be fine. It's going to be nice. Going to be nice indeed. Good times last week. Looking forward to this week. Family was out. Everyone was happy. I do wish Noah had been able to come. That would have been fun. I did learn something because, I'm here for work and I do my work. I go to my room, I play the pickleball. But I did learn that in this aspect of cruising, and I would think this applies to life in general, that whatever you get out of it, that's what it's supposed to be. I find that there's a lot of times where people put their ideas of what things are supposed to be as far as enjoyable upon other people. And then for that person, it doesn't become enjoyable because everyone's level of enjoyment is different. So on the cruise, I don't even know what goes on the cruise. But because the family was here and my wife was busy going to a bunch of different things, there's I didn't know there was trivia. They have trivia every day on the cruise. And my wife really enjoyed that. And from the beginning, I would have thought, oh no, you're on a cruise. You got to do cruise stuff. You got to do this and do that. But it was the level of enjoyment that she had of participating in that. I thought, oh, you know what? That's the cruise is supposed to be whatever you get out of the cruise. This idea that, oh, it's one thing or things in life are one thing. It's just not true. Let people do and be what it is they do, and then they will enjoy whatever aspect of it is. That's what I learned last week. Because like I said, I didn't know there was trivia on the ship. I didn't know people did. I didn't know what people did. All I know is I would work and then wait for nighttime when things would take place. But during the day, there's all sorts of things that people show up to and they enjoy them. So I say good for them. Whatever aspects you find in life, enjoy it. You take that out of it and enjoy it. I don't know if that was a more you know. Maybe it's just an idea that as you go on in life, you still learn things. Maybe that's it. That's what the kids should take away from that little brief segment. There's some news that has nothing to do with cruising and stuff like that. I'll make this a little bit change directions and gears on this particular episode. We got the Brittany Griner thing. Brittany Griner was sentenced to 9 years in prison in Russia. That came down. This is all part of the theater that goes on before they eventually trade prisoners and send Brittany home. Brittany's been there way too long as a political prisoner thing. It is interesting because once again, more people have raised their heads, their ugly heads, it has raised the idea of racism in America, which, not that I ever expect it to go away, but it is a weird thing that people try to continually deny and yet still act in a certain way. I've seen people on social media, on my timeline, on Facebook that are friends, because those are the only things that I would see that are friends. And these aren't ancillary friends. These are actual people that I know. And they will start posting some weird, crazy, racially tinged stuff that I don't even think they understand. Because what there are biases. It falls into a whole bunch of different categories where the racism is. There's prejudices, there's biases, there's blatant racism, which is on the far end of the spectrum. But there's also those other things that part of the tinge of racism, where the biases and like I said, the prejudices. So I've seen two people, in essence, call her a drug addict. Go, well, she brought drugs into Russia or something. And people that don't know the story, people that have done zero research, and they're people, like, I don't even know what political party they stand in. I only go on what they're saying. And I don't even think it matters what their political party is, because that whole idea, the two-party system today, is crazy, because it's weird how it is, with people on the right are being hated and people on the left are this and that. It's nonsense. It's what it is. But these are two people that have said, oh, she's a drug addict. Why would she bring drugs? Britney Griner has worked and played in Russia for years. Played basketball in Russia because she does not make enough money in America because the WNBA pays garbage. And so a lot of these women basketball players have to go to Europe or to Russia, or they got to go overseas to play, because for some reason over there, they are regarded they are put in higher regard than they are in America, which says a lot about America. It really does. This whole idea of white man central is crazy. And I'm not saying that it's just white men that make money in this country, but white men are paying the people that play sports in this country. The largest percentage is white men. They're owners of teams in this country. So you can sit there and say, well, there's a lot of black people that make money. Yeah, there's a ton of black people that make money. LeBron James recently just became a billionaire, and he's still playing. Now, most of that money, he made a lot of money in basketball, but a lot of that money has to do with other ventures. But it's the same thing about the Chris Rock bit, where it says that black people are rich, white people are wealthy. Yeah, LeBron James makes a lot of money, but the person that pays him makes a lot more. And that's a white person. More than likely a white male. I'm not talking about the Lakers, because that's a white female. That's Jeannie Buss. But in general, Jerry Jones, owner of the Cowboys, come on now. But the fact that women in America seem to be going in line with the white men is crazy to me as well, because I don't know what's going on overseas where there seems to, well, I do know what's going on overseas. Overseas, you'll find places where, hey, look, we've elected we've elected a female prime minister. We've elected a female president. We've done this. For some reason, they're farther along with the idea that women are valuable or to be valued than we are in America. Much further along. And that's why our female basketball players can go over there and make money, as opposed to here, where very few people show up to the WNBA games. The WNBA games people make fun of all the time. I remember when it first started, because I love sports. I'll watch anyone playing sports as long as it's at a high level. The first few years of the WNBA weren't great. They weren't. The talent level wasn't very good. You had some women that were really, really great. I believe Cynthia Cooper was dominant of women's basketball, just dominant. And then you had other players that, you'd watch them. Oh, look, no one can make a layup is what's going on. Now, if it's on, I'll watch. If I'm flipping through the channels, I'll watch. I'm a Sparks fan because I'm an LA person and stuff like that. And I'll watch because some of the stars on the Ngumake sisters are on the Sparks. I'll mention players. I won't go into mention players that none of you know who they are. But the girl that the lady that just quit, I don't know what they went their ways. They had a divorce. I wanted to watch her. I can't remember her name right now. But I watch the WNBA. If Diana Taurasi is playing, I'm tuned in. If Cheryl Bird is playing or Sue Bird is playing, I'm tuned into that. So there's a lot of them. Deladonna, I watch a lot of them. But the majority of people don't. The stands are usually filled with free ticket giveaways. So they're not being supported here. They're supported when they're in college, which is weird because a lot of those were big stars when they were in college. And yet they go to the pros, the pro game, not anything that people are supporting. But overseas, they are. So Brittany Griner knew of the thing. She knew she's been in and out of Russia for many years. She understands. She's not trying to smuggle drugs into Russia. Matter of fact, what she had was oil. It was cannabis oil. And I'm not even sure if it was cannabis oil or the residue of cannabis oil. I'm not sure even that point. But the idea that, she's a drug addict. And it's weird that there's a stigma on the whole drug addict thing over cannabis oil. We legalized marijuana in most of this country. And yet, there's still the stigma of people who look at it and go, look at them, the drug addicts, those crazy, wacky hippies with their drugs and their cannabis oil. I'm like, really? I'm not a drug guy. If you guys know me, I've never done a single drug, and nor have I had a single drink of alcohol. My entire life. But I still don't judge people by what it is that they do in that aspect when they're doing something that is a legal substance. And I grant it's not legal everywhere in America, and it's not legal there, but I don't put judgment and say you're a druggie because you're doing marijuana that is legal in, X amount of states. I don't put that judgment on there. But it's weird that people have. And like I said, this is a tinge of racism because I don't understand why when a white person is on drugs, it's a problem. Like, they've got a problem. They've got something, hey, alcoholism, it's genetic, it's hereditary, it's within your DNA. We've got to get them some help. But if a black person is on drugs, well, then you got to get your act together. There's no better example of that than the opioid thing. Opioids, generally a white thing. And now it's a problem. We have got to get help for these people on opioids and be able to get them some help to conquer this problem that they've got. It's a mass issue, opioids. But meanwhile, none of them said a damn word when it was a crack epidemic, because crack was for black people. And these drug addicts have got to get it together. If you're on crack, we got to put you in jail. What if black people had said, hey, you know what? This is a problem. and I just need help with my problem. Like, no, jail. You got to go. I don't see any push for putting the people on I can't even get it out, on opioids in prison. Where's that push? Because it certainly was there for black people with the crack epidemic. So Brittany caught with cannabis oil, and I've seen, like I said, even Trump did it too. So there's got to be people that just follow lockstep with whatever Trump says. That, drug addict. Trump said, she makes all this money. She makes all that money over there. All the money that you're talking about that Brittany makes, she don't make it here. She doesn't make it in America. She makes that overseas. That's where she made that money, was in Russia. That's where she got paid that money, was there. If she was paid the amount of money, she'd be here. She wouldn't have to go over there. If people would support female athletes, that whole idea where the female soccer team, the women's soccer team had to fight for money to be paid equally, which was the most asinine thing I've ever heard of. Because the men's team should have had to be fighting to be paid the amount of money the women were getting paid, because the women's money should have been much higher, because the women's team has been historically much better. Historically much better than the men's team. I don't know a single thing about the U.S. men's soccer team, but I know when the women are on, I'm watching. I know when the women are on, I'm watching, because there's a chance, more of a chance that those women are going to win, as opposed to whatever the hell the men's soccer team is doing. In comparison, men's soccer team to the women's soccer team, the men's soccer team is garbage. What have they won? Did they win a World Cup? Did they? No, they haven't. I know the women have. And the women's team has had much more relevance for a longer period of time. When did what was that, 90 or 2000? It's 22 years. 22 years of dominance. What have the men's team done in the last 22 years? Nothing. Not a damn thing. But this is America. That's why when people talk about being the good old days, and I see that white women, go along with that, I'm like, what is wrong with you? There was never a good old day in America for white women. There wasn't. And women have the numbers. There's more women. They live longer, and there's more women. I've been lately in the act. I've been a big, without trying to mansplain or whatever that word is, that term is, I've kind of been anti-men, or at least anti-white men. But it may be more anti-men just in general, because this nonsense needs to stop. This whole male-dominant society that we live in, when most of the households aren't male-dominant. You find there's a lot of single moms. You'll hear the stories. Oh, my mom was a single mom. She made everything work for our family. She did this. All that. It's a lot. It's a lot in America. Not saying that the men aren't around either, but I'm just saying that there is a lot of, that type of single mom household being brought up, and my mom did everything, and my mom did this, and I wasn't part of that single parent household. But a lot of props to women. A lot of props to the women out there. And this, like I said, this nonsense, this tinge of racism that takes place when it has to do with Brittany is upsetting. And the idea that you would say, oh, well, she did this and she did that. And she, like I said, Trump saying, well, she makes all this money. Yeah, she doesn't make that money here. Because in America, we're not valuing women how they should be. That's what I got to say. It is to go back to the race thing, it is a thing where if you think about how things are put, black is always bad, white is always good. Literature, it is. The white, everything. The white knight, good. Black knight comes in, everyone boos. You boo the black knight, you cheer for the white knight. I wrote a sketch one time about this thing where the white shark is great. Great white shark. Black whale, killer. Killer whale. There's a lot of that undertone. Why did I say it like George Takei? Undertone in society. So hopefully Brittany will be able to come home. She's been gone too long. Of course, there's also the other people that are busy. I don't know who Brittany Griner is. I've never heard of her before this. Well, shut up. You sit in your house. You do nothing. Brittany Griner was one of the most dominant female college basketball players of all time. Pay attention to some women's sports, folks. That's actually, I know this is weird that I keep going back to pickleball, but I'm going to proclaim it Pickleball Week. That is one of the reasons why I enjoy pickleball. It is an absolute level playing field for men and women. It really is. There is nothing that is, the power of men, the strength of men, that gives you an advantage in pickleball. Level playing field. Level playing field. Men and women play together, can play against each other. Now, I don't know how it works in the professional ranks. I always see that it's men playing men in the professional. Like, they have a men's finals or a women's finals. But I'd be very curious because from what I can see at the level of people that I play with and the level of stuff that I see on the clips and highlights, it don't look like there's much difference at all or any difference at all between the men's and the women's game. So that one of the reasons why I enjoy the pickleball, level playing field. A woman can beat a man at any given time if she's a better player. So, take a look at some of the WNBA. Unfortunately, Diana Taurasi is out for the rest of the season. But Sue Bird's retiring. She had a great career. Diana Taurasi can hoop. Kobe Bryant once said that Diana Taurasi could play in the men's game. She could play in the NBA. That's how good Kobe Bryant thought she was. It's good enough for Kobe. Good enough for me. Shout out to Kobe. Miss that dude. Rest in peace, Kobe. What else is happening here? I took a look at some of the news stories that are kind of intriguing to me. A little crazy. Apparently, Lake Mead was just a burial ground, a dumping spot for all sorts of bodies and crimes. Because of the drought and water receding, they have now found a fourth body in Lake Mead because the levels have gone to a point that no one had ever imagined. But good Lord, there have been a lot of killing and dumping in Lake Mead. That's a little bizarre to me that people just use that as a dumping spot. They found a body in a barrel. Like, that wasn't natural causes. I mean, I don't mean to laugh that somebody died, but I'm just saying there's some nefarious things going on over there. People just, boom, commit a crime. What are we going to do? Well, there's always Lake Mead. Yeah, but it don't matter. That's a deep lake. Nothing's good. You'll never find that. And then all of a sudden, whoops, a drought, climate change. Damn it. So hopefully we can find out who these people are, find out what happened to them, bring the people to justice. But that's just a curious story to me that so many bodies have been found in Lake Mead, that people have been killing people and dumping people over there. Another curious story. Man, this is sports again, too. Pete Rose. I don't know if people have paid attention to this story. This is probably how not to handle public relations in a story of where you're accused of something bad. So we all know Pete Rose, the whole thing that he bet on baseball, but he claims he didn't bet on his team to lose, and then he's been banned from the Hall of Fame, and so he's the hit king. Pete Rose is the all-time hit king. Nobody who's ever played the game of baseball has more hits in their career than Pete Rose. But Pete Rose can't get in the Hall of Fame. Banned from baseball because he gambled on baseball, which is one of the cardinal sins in sports as for an athlete to do. So Pete still has battled this whole thing. Well, recently Pete got invited back to Philadelphia, where they won a championship when Pete was there. And Pete was there to honor that particular team that won the championship while he was there. Now, there's a story that goes back a ways that Pete Rose had. I'm trying to get this correct because I'm not reading it out of the story. But Pete Rose had some sort of relationship that was sexual in nature with a young girl back in his playing days, which is already creepy because the way the story is that I read was that Pete was accused of statutory rape. Is what it was. That was the term I was looking for, was statutory rape. Because he had sex with a girl that was not of age. Now, Pete says that she was of age. The age of consent in Ohio at that time was 16. And that she was 16 at the time. It's weird about it because he says, oh, well, no, we didn't have sex until she was 16. Why are you with he was an adult. He was a player. Why are you with a girl that you were waiting to be 16? A girl that was 15? What are you doing? What in the hell are you doing with a teenage girl? And you're a grown-ass man in the major leagues playing baseball, that you're involved with a 15, 16-year-old girl. He admitted, he's like, yeah, we had sex, but she was 16 at the time. So this story has followed Pete around. And it came up because Pete doesn't make a lot of public appearances like, showing up at stadiums because it's... I don't know if he's welcome. People just don't want the headache that's associated with it. But they brought him into Philadelphia, and then the reporters were asking him, hey, what about these allegations of this statutory rape thing? How do you think that this looks by you just showing up here? Pete, like I said, this is how not to handle things. He says, hey, that was a long time ago. Nobody wants to discuss anything that happened 50 years ago, and the reporter was a female. He says, nobody wants to discuss things that talk about things that happened 50 years ago. That was a long time ago, babe. Babe. He called the female reporter babe. Pete is so out of touch. That's a lifetime of making some really horrible decisions by Pete Rose. He was involved with a teenage girl when he was an adult. He gambled on baseball. And then it just continues to just show that. I said this before, but this was about Trump when people used to think that Trump was going to change and become more presidential as soon as he became president. I was like, no. What is wrong with you? 70-year-old people, what, they're so well known for their ability to change? No. You get to a certain point in life, that's it. There are no more changes. There's nobody in their 80s that goes, you know what? When I hit my 70s, I really started to see life differently. That's a statement that's never taken place. Pete Rose is who Pete Rose is, because that dude is going to be the same. That is the same bad decision-making dude that decided to have sex with a 15 or 16-year-old girl when he was an adult. So that's the fact of him saying, we don't want to discuss this. Nobody wants to discuss this. I'm here for my teammates, and nobody wants to talk about things that are from 50 years ago. Well, I don't know if people want to talk about it, but people want some answers about it. People would like to see some contrition about it. People would like to see that you've changed, and he hasn't, because he's not going to. Because 70-plus-year-old people don't change. They just don't. That's who they are. All right. It's time to wind this episode down. I don't even know what it was about. It seemed like a lot of prattling on as usual. And because I'm on the subject of baseball, why don't I go ahead and wind it down with this. The great Vin Scully passed away last week. And I know I talk a lot about baseball. Last time I was ranting and raving about baseball. But I don't know if I'll rant and rave about it, but good grief. Vin Scully was the greatest baseball announcer I've ever heard. And I'm a little partial to it because of the idea that I grew up in L.A. I grew up as a kid as a Dodger fan. And then in adulthood, I switched over from the Dodgers. I think I've explained this story before, that the Dodgers were a team that always grew their team from the farm system. And then there was an ownership group that took over the Dodgers that they decided, we're just going to buy free agents. We're going to become the 1970s Yankees, late 70s, early 80s Yankees, and just buy free agents and get rid of our farm system and get rid of the guys that came up through the farm system in an effort to, buy these free agents, high-priced free agents. And that's when I left, when I was done being a Dodger fan. But I will always remember those years, because I would still, I live in LA area now and have been for a while. So still would watch the Dodgers. I can't see the Padres in LA. But Vin Scully was the guy. I can't tell you how many times I would sit at the dining room table and doing my homework and listening to Dodger games and listening to Vin tell me what's going on at the baseball games. I would say the reason that I love baseball is because of Vin Scully. Because Vin would paint a picture for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all those year-old kid that made me feel like I was at the game. That made me feel like me being there helped that team win. That is why I have so much just anger. Well, I guess anger's too harsh of a word, but just annoyance with today's baseball announcers. Like I told you, I can't listen to the guys on ESPN because they're unlistenable, because they're talking about everything else but the game. You listen to Vin Scully, it is the game. The stories that he weaves in about the players all had to do with the game. And these guys don't care about the game. They're talking about everything else. And they're busy talking about how, we need to get younger viewers in here. Well, then how about talk about baseball? How about talk about the actual game that's going on? Because the fact that the guy is a foodie or a guy wearing a chain, if that's what appeals to quote unquote young baseball fans, and they're not there for baseball. It is odd. I had a weird thought earlier in the week about this, about the fact that they're too busy saying, well, we're losing younger viewers, and younger viewers think that baseball is boring. Well, younger viewers all grew up playing soccer. And is there anything more boring than soccer? I'm sorry. I know there are people that are listening, and you might be offended by that. But you need to take a good look at soccer and realize that as it is called the beautiful game, it is beautifully boring. Because I can't even understand going to watch a game and it ends with nobody ever scoring. And you think that your evening or your day was well invested. How? How was it well invested when no one achieved the objective of what you're supposed to in the sport, which is to score a goal? You left 0-0, and you're like, well, and that was a good game. No, it wasn't. It was an unfinished game is what it was. So the idea that young people think that baseball is boring, but they grew up playing soccer, which is as boring as hell. And you know me, I love sports. I watch pro bull riding. That's how much I love sports. I watch crazy stuff. I'll watch female soccer. I'll watch the U.S. women play soccer. You know why? They score goals. That's what they do. They score goals. But I'm not watching soccer in general because I've tried. Boring as hell. Boring as hell. U.S. women's soccer team scores goals. Like I said, Vin is the reason I love baseball. 67 years that dude showed up behind the mic to broadcast games for the Dodgers. 67 years. That dude went to work. And it hasn't been the same since he left. But there are some broadcasters out there. For the Giants, I believe it's Charlie Steiner, who actually worked with Vin Scully. He worked with the Dodgers broadcast for a while. That guy's an old school guy. That guy will tell you the game, will tell you what's going on with the game. Even in basketball, I was very, very fortunate to grow up in the LA area where I got to listen to Chick Hearn on basketball and Vin Scully on baseball. There will never be two broadcasters like them ever again. They were the best at what they did. Vin was the best in baseball. He also did other sports. And Chick was the best at basketball. I always remember Chick for bowling, bowling for dollars. If you're from the LA area, you know that was a show in the LA area that Chick Hearn hosted, Bowling for Dollars. It was a game show where contestants bowled. That was Chick Hearn, Bowling for Dollars. Like I said, those were the two of the best. They let you know what the game was going on. They let you know what was going on in the game. They let you know that your presence being there was going to help. They made you feel like you were there at the game. These broadcasters today do not make you feel like you're at the game because it's about them and it's about, hey, look how funny I am and look how clever I can be and look at what I'm talking about. Ugh. Just makes me, those ESPN dudes. I was at every game that Vin Scully was broadcasting. I wasn't physically there, but Vin made me feel like I was there. Rest in peace, Vin Scully. And thank you for being the soundtrack of my childhood. For the love of the baseball. Folks, that is it. That's all I've got for you. Next week or whenever I come back, there's other things I need to discuss. There's a python thing and there's a python issue in Florida, and they've figured out how they can try to rectify the situation, which seems like the worst solution I've ever heard of. So I'll talk about that next time. I appreciate all of you for tuning in and all the new people that continue to tune in. The more, the merrier. Come on in and sit here for a bit to listen to this nonsense that comes out of my head. People have been sending emails, and again, I don't even know if they've been sending the right. I can't even access the email now that I'm on the road. I can access it at home, but I will try. So the email, you want to email the show, oldmanisright@gmail.com. Even if that's not the email, I will make it the email. oldmanisright@gmail.com. If you got any questions, concerns, want to give a shout out, just say, hey, whatever it is, comments. I don't know why you'd have concerns. Come to think of it, I just realized I said concerns, and I don't know why you'd have any concerns. I'm fine. My health is fine. So I don't know what your concerns would be. All things Lamont Ferguson can be found at lamontferguson.com. I'm trying to think if I got anything that's coming up. Well, next month, it's already August, so at the end of September, I'll be in Edmonton at the Edmonton Comedy Festival. So all you Edmontonians, come on out. I'll be ranting and raving about something. It'll be good to be back in Edmonton, so that'll be nice. Look, I talked about a lot of stuff here, mainly shitty parents. But it had to be done. And some women's thing. You know what? I think a lot of stuff I was right about. Although it was a little conflicting when I said that soccer was amazingly boring after I did hype up the women's national soccer team. So it's a little conflicting there. I get it. So maybe that I was a little wrong. I'm not wrong that soccer is not boring, because soccer is boring. But I don't know. I just love watching the U.S. women's soccer team. And I've never come away from them with the score was 0-0. So maybe I'm not watching enough to where it is. But I know every time I tune into the women's soccer team, they're putting on a show. That's what I know. And I know when I tune into the men's soccer team, they're putting on disappointment. That's what they're doing. But shout out to you, the men's soccer team. Maybe, you know, I still root for you. And when you start winning, like most bandwagon fans, then I'll be around. I just know the women's team has a longer track record of being better. And I don't want to hear any of your excuses. Be better. Be like the women's team. Crying out loud. So, like I said, I've said a lot of nonsense here tonight. I'm messing up a lot of words. I understand that, but it's early in the morning. These are the longest words I've spoken. Matter of fact, I'm at a point now where I've talked as much as I will speak during the entire week of work on the ship. And I use that just for you guys. Huh? How about that? That's something. It may have been torture for some of you. I don't know. Some of the things I may have been wrong about. But you know the drill. Sometimes the old man is right. I'll see you next time.